Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome to a very special episode. So yeah, we're a bit late to this game, unfortunately. We honestly did intend to do a live reaction to all the episodes of WandaVision. That had been the plan. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, we had to change living situations at an abrupt notice. So because of all the craziness over the last 2 months of trying to secure a place, we didn't have time to properly divert our attention to WandaVision and give it the focus it needed. So we decided ultimately just to watch, everything along with everyone else and then talk about it at the end, the season as a whole. So considering it's only one season. And oh boy, was it a season. Whew. This was honestly, this is so damn impressive because I thought, Marvel films were a big achievement on their own. At least a good portion of them were. But the fact that they can do that in a sort of TV format is just, it's been nothing short of impressive. And every week I've been just more wowed with, the episodes, with the actors, the storyline. It's just, whew, this has been a good time for, this has been a good time for streaming.
It definitely, especially after basically having a year of no Marvel movies, it scratched that itch that we so desperately needed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been looking forward to Black Widow, even though I know ultimately the film is pointless by this point, but
well, yes and no. I'm sure it'll provide something. I know
it'll probably tie into something eventually, but given the fact that, this comes after Endgame, I feel it's a bit pointless, but I might be wrong, who knows. The point is, we've had pretty much nothing to go on. Everything that we thought was going to happen kept getting pushed back, so it's by the time WandaVision came, it's it sounds like a stupid concept, but dear God, we're desperate for anything.
But boy, did it exceed our expectations. Oh, man.
I was kind of with the majority at first when they started, because I'm okay, it's a bit slow to start, and I'm wondering where the heck they're going with this. But once it got going, it really got going. It just, you gotta be patient, though, because it's not just, this generation and the fact that a lot of us are now used to, the streaming and having everything pretty much be episode bombed and getting it instantly. It's just, people in general seem to lack patience nowadays, plus with the pandemic and us being so desperate to, grasp any sort of entertainment. It just, it made waiting just all the more excruciating.
I mean, although you can at least say they dropped the first 2 episodes, day one. So, we didn't have to wait too long. Instead of waiting all of 9 weeks, we only had to do 8.
Honestly, that's the best way to start, a new show or pretty much, or a new book or anything. Because I always have a 2-episode or 2-chapter rule when it comes to TV and books. It's okay, I'll give it, 2 episodes, 2 chapters to hook me. And if it doesn't, then But these 2 episodes, thankfully, did just that. And I gotta say, it was so cheesy, but so nostalgic. I didn't really grow up with a lot of the old-fashioned TV shows. I never really watched Dick Van Dyke or Mary Tyler Moore. I watched a little bit of, Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, mostly through reruns and stuff. But I recognized the tropes and, a lot of the running gags you see in the old stuff, and it was pretty cool to see them acted out, on the episodes.
Me being such a Nickelodeon junkie, I would even stay up and watch Nick at Night. So I definitely saw I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie. So yeah, a lot of this just resonated so much with me.
I can't believe how accurate they got everything, both from not just the acting and dialogue, but from the camera work, how they staged everything, it even seemed the quality of camera. It wasn't, completely, because there's a big difference between cameras used back then and cameras used now, and it's not exactly easy to replicate that.
No, but at least they were able to tweak it with the aspect ratio.
Yeah.
To the point where, they even intentionally, they have it in like 4:3, I think it is, or
so.
16:9, and then when some big moment happens, the aspect ratio switches to like widescreen.
Yeah, I think the third episode was when like it finally extended.
Yeah, but even then, like even during like the first 2 episodes, if something like the point at which they have that sort of out of body experience moment while the guy's choking. And they're just looking at each other like trying to figure out what's going on. It's like you see the aspect ratio change just for that moment.
True.
Yeah. So they were really clever about, how they were going to play this. And boy, did it pay off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll do a brief overview of what we thought episode by episode since, there was only 9. So, and considering, they each had like drastically different styles, even though it's basically the same story we're watching. We just wanted to comment on it real quick. So yeah, the first 2 episodes that aired, filmed before a live studio audience, and Don't Touch That Dial, obviously were like the 50s and 60s era of television. So very cheesy, very over the top. A lot of like miscommunication situations and stuff. But it was really enjoyable though. And even though it was like black and white, you could tell everything like still popped. You could definitely like tell like the characters were way more distinct. Like I gotta say, for like the thing that like really caught me first and foremost was just the fact that WandaVision actually had fun personalities. Because I always felt like they were held back in the movies. Because it's like, yeah, they were nice people. Some of them had complicated backstories, but for the most part, they were there, they were, they tried to be heroes, but you never got a real feel for their character, not until this series. I was really impressed that, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany got to, like, really exercise their, like, comedy chops, because they did a really good job. What did you think?
Oh, no, I'm in agreement with you. I also, I thought it was funny that they had Deborah Jo Rope, was it Kitty in
Kitty from that
70s show? If she's, it would have been more appropriate to have her, 2 episodes later, but,
I'm guessing that would have been a little distracting, and especially considering, what happens in that era of the episode.
Yeah. I mean, no, that was still, the wacky hijinks, Oh, we invited my boss to dinner and I completely forgot.
Or when they do the magic show and he gets drunk.
Oh, when they do the magic show and how clever they are with Wanda trying to disprove everything as,
It's like, we gotta make it look convincing, but not too convincing.
Yeah. It's like, oops, we revealed our secrets. Like, I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
Even when she made it so that it made no sense as to how that worked, people just bought it anyway.
Especially, I love the animation of inside of Vision when they show the
this is the cartoon drawing of the gum getting stuck.
Yeah.
I can't believe, like, this is like one of the most, like, the ultimate weapons, one of the crowning achievements made by Stark. That's a combination of Jarvis and Ultron, imbued with the power of Thor, and yet it gets, like, caught up by a piece of gum. Like, okay. Then again, if we're, like, reverting everything back to, like, the 60s, I guess it's the 60s technology, so something like that would, like, trip it up. Still, it was funny, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, those 2 episodes were a good start to everything, and of course, that's when we see, like, the first 2 commercials that played during it. I gotta say, it caught me off guard at first, because I didn't even realize, I'm so used to seeing ads during, like, videos, that when it came up, I didn't even notice at first till they mentioned, oh, and here's, like, a Stark brand toaster. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I also know that, like, at least, I think in the 50s, the real early television days, a lot of times they didn't even have, actual commercial breaks as we know them. Like, I saw an old Milton Berle, and the show basically keeps going, but they just do, like, a sponsorship moment. Like they put a moment aside to talk about the you know, what they're advertising.
So it's basically like how YouTube videos are nowadays, you know, with people who are getting paid by sponsors. We'll talk about it either at the beginning of the video or the end of the video, whenever. So it's kind of like we came full circle when you think about it.
In a way, yes. In a way.
I mean, that's fine, too. It's like a lot, like, if you're creative enough about it, you know, like, promoting a sponsor can be a fun thing. So we'll try it one day if we ever get sponsored. So then the episode after that, now in color. So that's when Wanda has the twins. So, of course, we all figured it was coming, because that's what happened in the comics. You know, she and Vision, through the power of magic, were able to have twins. On top of that, we find out more, like, we start getting more of an idea about the character, was it Geraldine she was called? And that, you know, maybe there's something more to her. Because we all had that inclination, given how they kind of focused on her a bit in, like, in the first 2 episodes. Well, at least the second episode,
At least
right?
the second episode,
yeah. Because, like, the fact that, you know, they name-dropped her, that Wanda was having more interactions with her, you're thinking, like, okay, maybe she's going to be a bit more prominent, sort of like how the neighbor is. And then sure enough, this episode confirmed it, especially when Wanda friggin' hurls her out of the friggin' town.
Like, I think up to this point, we had been sort of thinking that maybe, you know, there was something controlling the situation, something had Wanda, you know,
Because in the first 2 episodes, they were, like, dropping subtle hints that, you know, that Wanda didn't remember what was going on, neither did Vision, considering, you know, they couldn't remember their pasts or anything, like how they even got to Westview. And then, of course, Wanda found that helicopter with the symbol, and then she got that voice on the radio calling out to her, and then, of course, that friggin' beekeeper showed up. And then, of course, this episode pretty much kind of confirms that.
That she's actually the one in control.
Because the fact that she was able to sort of reverse things, because, like, she sees the beekeeper, she's like, no, and then, it's like, what? And then even in this episode, just, you know, Vision starts catching on and starts asking questions, she's just like, and is like, oh, never mind, I don't have a question. Like, it kind of gets unnerving.
Like, you even start to see sort of chinks in the, you know, world, because you see, like, the next door neighbor is sort of just, what is he, like, he's trying to trim the hedges, but he's really,
he's, like, cutting through the
wall, yeah.
Almost like he's, like, on, like, auto, like, he's not even controlling his actions. Starts getting, like, disconcerting, and I feel bad for Wanda, the fact that she, like, gave birth to twins in the span of a day. I mean, I know she controls everything, but I imagine that pain must have still been real. But
it's okay, there was a stork.
What the frig was a stork? Because I'm like, she's the one controlling all this, so how the hell is there why did she make a stork, and how come she couldn't get rid of it? I know that was, like, typical TV shenanigans, but still. Like, it starts to really plant the seeds, especially when, you know, that Vision starts noticing things, because he notices the neighbors are talking amongst themselves, and they seem real scared and all that. Like, this is when it really, like, comes into play, and then, of course, the episode after that's when we start getting the full picture. Yeah, in the episode when we interrupt this program, that's when we find out, you know, who's been trying to contact her. It's been Sword. And Sword's appeared for the first time ever in the MCU, and I won't lie, I did not even know Sword existed before this.
I did. I actually, I kind of started reading, like, back in 2006, I started reading Astonishing X-Men, so I definitely knew what Sword was, at least, you know, in the comics, and this was a very different Sword. But, of course, there is so much going on in this episode, and it's what's happened, you know, even going back to, you know, when everybody comes back from the snap.
Yeah, I was surprised. They picked up immediately after people were snapped back.
But, of course, it is very important that they show that, you know, especially given who we're, you know, following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so bad, because you find out that Geraldine was actually Monica Rambeau, you know, the little girl we met in Captain Marvel. And I kind of was thinking that, too, because I'm like, okay, she's got to be an important character. And then, like, I couldn't help but sort of, like, when you see her in the previous episode with her fro and everything, I'm like, she kind of reminds me of that little girl we saw in Marvel. Like, and sure enough, that's what that's what happened. Like, it was her, but poor thing, like, she goes to sleep thinking that her, because her mom just had an operation to remove cancer. She thinks she's cancer-free now, only to wake up and realize, oh no, she died because the cancer came back years ago while she was gone. Like, that, wow. And that sucks, too, because, like, her mom was cool in the movie. I liked her, and it sucks that, she gets her cancer removed, wakes up, her daughter's gone, half the population's gone. She's trying to hold SWORD together, only for her cancer to come back and kill her, and she dies alone. That's just depressing. I even wonder if Captain Marvel knew about it.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's like she seemed to be pretty out of touch, and by the time we get to her, it's like there's all this stuff going on. Then there's like the 5-year gap where we don't even know what's happening. So it's like, maybe she knew, but it's not like we ever get to find out.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, though. I mean, it's cool knowing that, she started SWORD. Like, it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Fury takes over S.H.I.E.L.D., she takes over SWORD. They both, have those factions going.
And I also find it weird that SWORD is, instead of being like sentient worlds, it's now sentient weapons.
I mean, they had to change it for this show because the problem with adding SWORD in its original context is that you have to explain why the heck they didn't show up in previous Marvel films, considering, all of the space threats we've had from there. I mean, Thor alone.
Yeah, but I mean, on the other hand, and I know I'm getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but it seems like we're going to go in that direction. I mean, not even getting ahead of ourselves because it was hinted at in Spider-Man Far From Home that, there is a space base.
Right.
Yeah, so something's going up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but
if I had to wager a guess, I would think that what we saw in WandaVision was Proto-Sword, and that it started off just specializing in weaponry, but it's going to extend to outer space, especially given everything that's happened in this now.
That's very possible, yeah. Maybe we'll finally get our Abigail brand. Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, this episode pretty much, explains everything that's been going on behind the scenes of the first 3 episodes, and that, SWORD has been monitoring Westview from the outside, has been trying to find a way in, but they can't because the force field apparently changes everything that goes into it to suit the time period it's currently imitating. One of the things, they sent in there was,
Well, they sent in, that drone, which
turned into,
became in the
toy helicopter.
Yeah.
They sent in that one guy, in the special, suit or whatever, and he came out looking like a beekeeper.
Not only that, but his tether turns into a jump rope.
Yeah.
And when they bring it back out, and it also lines up with Rambo's clothing as well, it's like the stuff that was changed in, when it crosses to, Wanda's barrier becomes, that shape, that appearance in, the real world.
Going back to the beekeeper guy, I realized we never found out what happened to him. He manages to get into Westview. He comes out of the sewer, but as soon as Wanda sees him, she does her whole reverse footage thing, and he disappears again. But we never see him again. We never hear from him,
or at least that we are aware of.
But it's not like SWORD even brings attention to it or anything. I think they kind of consider him lost or whatever. I'm like, so is he dead? Is he wandering around the sewers with no memory of, how he got there? What the heck's going on? What happened to him?
I mean, we never really see the guy's face, and then, I think later on, in later episodes, we get that mailman delivery guy that I don't think we'd seen prior, so...
I thought we did. I thought he's been the mailman, just in different forms since the beginning.
Honestly, it's been a while. I don't remember. I mean, honestly, we probably don't see everybody's face in the town, at least all at once.
I mean, I like to think he got out and just was wandering around as a mindless meat puppet as the rest of them, but at the same time, I'm like, did Wanda kill somebody? Or is he just stuck down in the sewer forever? Well, I don't mean to fixate on that. It's always been in the back of my mind, and I always kept wondering if they were going to address it at all in the remaining episodes, but they never seem to.
So I know everybody's, clamoring on the fact that we've got characters from Captain Marvel, from Ant-Man / Ant-Man and Wasp, and from Thor / Thor the Dark World. We got, Monica Rambeau, Jimmy Woo, and Darcy.
It's characters you never thought would be together, because they're like, they're side characters, and they're not important in the grand scheme of things, but oh man, they're like the power group in this series. Like, they get a lot accomplished. And
not to mention, it's like everybody who disliked Darcy in the Thor movies, it's like now they're actually rooting for her.
They're now like calling her a queen or a queen or whatever the phrase is nowadays. And granted, I like her a lot more in this than I did in the previous Thor movies. Because back then she was, the annoying intern who was just there as the comic relief. And granted, she's still kind of that way in this, but she's way more competent.
I think she's given more to do. She's given better direction.
Plus, she's like a doctor now, so she's, fully smart and is competent and everything. So I'm glad to see that, they actually utilized her well, because Kat Dennings, I don't really care for her as an actress. Like, I saw her in Two Broke Girls, and I honestly cannot watch that show because it makes my ears bleed listening to them talk. But in this, she actually was genuinely funny and likable, and I found myself rooting for her. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see how people like her now.
They took off the obnoxious factor, let's put it that way, yeah.
But it was cool seeing them, watching this from basically our point of view, watching the show as is, and actually getting invested in it too. It was nice seeing them, catch the little tidbits and stuff that we didn't see the first time around. Plus, seeing the whole, how those moments where Wanda kind of reverses stuff are, cut out of the episode, sort of like, how bloopers are and stuff for regular shows. But it was still pretty cool, though, and it did help explain a lot. So yeah, it was a nice little, behind the scenes thing. And, kind of brought into the limelight I want to call him, a C-villain of this thing.
Yeah.
What was his name again? I keep forgetting his name.
I forget. He's, the director. And we even, after watching last night, I still don't remember his name.
He is government man from the government. He's pretty much the typical villain we've seen in MCU up to this point. He starts off nice, he's a friend of one of the main characters and stuff. He appears to want to do this to help people and stuff, but oh no, he actually has nefarious purposes all along. Just,
And of course, not only that, but it's unbeknownst to us, we're shown one version of, Wanda going into Sword, and, we think, oh, she broke in and stole Vision's body, and that, she took him in here, and then it turns out, no, that's not even what actually happened, but we'll get to that. We're led to believe this thus far, and then, later on, that whole concept will be turned on its head.
I do want to bring up something. It is, again, jumping ahead to the ending a bit, but it's mostly, it was brought to our attention in this episode, the fact that they were doing research on all the people that appeared in the episodes thus far, and we're realizing a good number of people in the videos were actually Sword agents. When I first saw that, I'm like, wait, why are there so many Sword agents? Were they going to this town and just blindly walking into this thing without calling backup? Is that why there were so many Sword agents? And then part of me was thinking, so wait, were they surrounding Wanda? Were they trying to trap her when she caused everything to happen in Westview? But then again, jumping toward the ending, we find out that they seem to just be town folks, just regular town folks, and that are under her control. So I'm wondering one of two things, were they actually town folks and the director was just lying about them being Sword agents? Or were some of them actually Sword agents that just happened to live in the town, or were they following her?
Well, one thing is for sure, because you do see when they're discussing all the agents, every single one of them has a New Jersey license.
So I guess they actually
definitely,
live in the town.
Yeah, they're definitely from New Jersey, let's put it that way.
That's a big coincidence.
Yeah.
They named at least 10 people we saw that were Sword agents, so they all just live in this one town. I'm just saying that was just something that confused me that I didn't exactly get clarified in the show. So just wanted to bring that up real quick.
And on a very special episode.
Oh yeah, this was the one that had the big cliffhanger, the one that everybody went apeshit over, and I don't blame them either.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, because, of course, after we get all the info and we know about S.W.O.R.D. and everything, we're back to the WandaVision show. They're raising their twins, who apparently can age themselves up. And I don't know if that's a conscious thing on Wanda's part or their part. It's kind of never really explained.
I mean, basically, from their conception, they'd basically been accelerating, so
yeah.
It's probably on Wanda, but then, they probably started doing it of their own accord, too.
Yeah, because that's something they never fully explained either, is that, she gives birth to the twins, obviously they're crying and stuff like babies do, and she tries to use her powers to forcibly put them to sleep, and she can't, which she thought was weird. And then not only that, but they age themselves up to about 5 years old. And then later on in the episode, age themselves up to 10 years old. And they seem to be doing things of their own volition of their own, independent thought outside of what, Wanda wants them to do. So I'm wondering, because I know Wanda technically created them, but at the same time, I'm are they separate entities now? Again, jumping to the ending, we do know that they cannot exist outside of Westview, just like Vision can't, but at the same time, so they can't exist outside this imaginary bubble, but they still can control themselves and have independent thought outside of their mother, so what kind of beings are they?
Well, let's just say for starters, and I mean, regardless of what we know about Vision in this world, she seems to be very selective with, free will and who, is actually a puppet. So it's there's sort of this strange mixing of the two, and especially when that comes to Vision. I guess, especially with him, I guess she gave him the most of the free will. She wanted anybody who, would be in her immediate, circle to have some semblance of free will.
I don't know, her powers are kind of all over the place with this, because we know that we eventually find out she is controlling the mind of basically everybody in town. They're not even allowed to think about escaping, which means that she has some level of clairvoyance in terms of reading their thoughts, of keeping them compliant and everything. But at the same time, she doesn't, suspect anything about Agnes. Even her son is picking up on the fact that, hey, I can't hear your thoughts. But she never realizes that. Same thing with when the special guest star appears at the end, too. I keep wondering, what are the extents of, her mind powers? I know she can mind control people to a degree. She can put them into trances. She can read their minds, read their intentions and stuff. Pretty much a lot of powers of the Mind Stone, but at the same time, it kind of goes in and out. It's, not consistent. It just, I kept thinking to myself whenever she would go up against someone, why don't you just, control them, blank their minds, or make them your puppet or whatever, and then they won't be able to fight against her. I'm what are the rules of this? I'm just so confused. I know she has her own power outside of those given to her by the Mind Stone, but at the same time, a little consistency would be nice.
I mean, obviously, while she is in control of her power, I don't think she has, she's definitely not aware of everything that's going on. It's she's kind of subconsciously doing everything. And there's only, a portion of it that she even knows how to control.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at one point during the episode, they get a dog. And that becomes a bit of a plot point, because, the boys age themselves up so they're able to actually have the dog, take care of the dog and everything. The dog's there for a portion of the episode, and then it dies. Part of me was thinking so was this an actual dog? Did she make up this dog? Like, did she subconsciously kill this dog?
Do you really want to think about that?
I don't want to, but these are questions that just get brought up, and then I fixate on them, and I can't help but wonder.
And again, getting ahead of myself, but what if it wasn't actually a dog? But it was something else that was transfigured into a dog.
That just makes it sadder.
Well, I mean, given what we see later on,
yeah.
with, you know...
Because I wonder, like, I know she can control the people. Like, can she control the animals? I know we don't really see any other animals in Westview outside of the dog. So that always, like, that was in the back of my mind, you know. It's just like, can she control any animals? Are they aware of what's going on? Because imagine some of the people in Westview must have had pets. You used to think, like, some of the houses were, like, probably loud as hell with all the dogs because, like, their owners are, like, put into stasis lock and they're, like, you know, feed me, walk me, and, like, dear God, the places must smell like shit. Or there's a lot of dead pets. But anyway, so yeah, we get through the whole episode, and of course this is, like, 80s style, so Wanda has, like, the big curly hair, all the women have the big curly hair. I will never understand that hairstyle.
The 80s.
I know. It's like I see pictures of, like, my parents and relatives from, like, the 80s, and they all had their hair curled and big, and I'm like, why did you think that was cool? But anyway, we finally get to, like, the ending of that episode, and we get technically our first post-credit scene. Because I love that she actually forcibly makes the credits roll just to end her argument with Vision. I thought that was funny. But then, yeah, after the credits, Pietro shows up.
But not the Pietro from this universe, the X-Men version of Pietro, but, you know, he's still playing this universe's Pietro.
It's like, as soon as that happened, I'm, like, extending my ear, and I'm like, out there, you can hear the screams of a million Marvel fans losing their shit. It's like, even like Kat&Doug is just like, they recast Pietro? I mean, it's a running gag in a lot of those shows, too. It's like, oh, we're going to cast this character for the longest time, and then, oops, something happened, and we may as well recast them, but everyone acts like it's normal, so let's just roll with it.
We can replace the voice so nobody can tell the difference.
But yeah, that was a good reveal, though, and I guess a good way of Disney showing, hey, we own Fox now. We own X-Men and the mutants. We can say the word mutant now.
We can call her Wanda Maximoff. Which they do in the next episode.
We can actually say the word Magneto, and you have to accept it. That was a good twist, and of course it brings you into the next episode. It was a Halloween Spooktacular.
And it's great because not only is it like a Halloween episode, but also like we jump a bit in terms like into the early 2000s with
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. But, you know, we get, like, a very Malcolm in the Middle-esque episode, which is just great.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love the intros into the WandaVision show by each decade. They've all been great, but I honestly think that the 90s one, the Malcolm in the Middle one, is my favorite. Just because Malcolm in the Middle was one of my favorite shows growing up. I watched it, you know, religiously, like, every Sunday. As soon as it aired, I love that show so much.
Malcolm in the Middle was an interesting one because it started out like the beginning of my middle school life, and then ended as I'm graduating high school. So it felt very, you know, in line with my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think was like the peakness of like the dysfunctional family era, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Like, I honestly don't think, like, not even Family Guy, I feel, can really top the dysfunctional family. Like, at least not in the way that's, like, likable and watchable.
Not to mention, at a certain point, it was canceled, so...
Yeah.
It was off the air for about 3 years.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but we digress.
Yeah, the point is, like, this was a fun one, especially because, again, it's a Halloween episode, and I love Halloween, and this was, you know, the perfect opportunity for them to wear, like, their old-fashioned comic, like, costumes and have it make sense.
And then we also get Detective Vision.
Yeah, he finally is like, okay, I know shit's going on, Wanda's not going to tell me anything, so I'm going to go off on my own and figure out what the heck's going on. Yeah, he almost gets himself killed as a result. He sees the barrier, he actually tries to go through the barrier, and it's freaking killing him. And
like, you see pieces of him just coming off of him.
I get he wanted to escape, but once he realized it was hurting / killing him, you think he would have retreated? But he was, like, determined.
And it also, it's kind of that first glimpse, you know, that the first... We're trying to figure out Vision, because at this point, we're kind of operating under the assumption, again, that, you know, Wanda stole his body, and that...
Resurrected him.
Yeah, resurrected him, that he's basically a living puppet in this world. But as he's, you know, coming out, while everything else that, you know, has been through Wanda's barrier still, you know, maintains, in this case, he's starting to come apart. Like, he could resume his, you know, current form, but just wind up going into, you know, sleep mode or whatever. But instead, no, he's, like, literally disintegrating. So now everybody's kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like, so wait, it's not just he lives within the force field, he actively cannot exist outside the force field. So that's to kind of give you your clue into that, you know, maybe it's not exactly as you think it is. Because I know a lot of people were, like, making jokes and stuff, especially when Wanda had, like, that flash where she imagined him with his dead body after the jewels ripped out. Same thing she does later with Pietro, like, imagining his dead body with the bullet holes. You think that, wait, so is he a walking corpse? Is Pietro a walking corpse? Like, what the heck's going on here? And then I see people online were making jokes about how, wait a minute, did she basically marry a dead dildo? I know that's an inappropriate thing to say, but the fact that he's kind of a robot, but he's also dead. And I was kind of thinking that myself. I'm like, so wait, is he technically dead? And she's been ew?
I think we were starting to think Marvel zombies.
Yeah. Oh god, that would have been. This episode, in addition to Vision trying to, you know, escape, Pietro's been trying to, I guess, mine Wanda for, like, information, like, how the heck did you do all this? And yada yada. I mean, you could tell me I'm your brother, even though, you know, she's suspicious of him as fuck. I mean, it only makes sense considering he came back from the frickin' dead.
And then Vision also meets up with Agnes, and she's, you know, kind of putting that act on of, you know, when he tries to communicate with the real her, that, you know, she's as troubled as everybody else is, but she's also kind of like, she's kind of trolling him too.
Yeah.
And it's not like, you know, oh, you know, she's trolling him because we know who she really is. It's like, no, she's kind of doing a bad job of trolling. Like, she's actively, like, saying she's very aware of what's going on, whereas everybody else is, you know...
I mean, considering that Wanda's able to just do magic in front of her casually and not worry at all about whether or not she sees or reacts, was a big indicator. I admit I was a bit fooled at first by seeing her like that, because I kept thinking, okay, there's something up with Agnes, she's not like the others, she has a degree of, like, awareness, but then, like, you see this and you're thinking, like, oh, was she thinking about escaping? Was she trying to escape, but she was being stopped? So it kind of fools you a bit, but not completely, but, like, we'll get into that in the next episode.
Yeah.
By the end of this, Vision tries to escape, he's killing himself trying to do it. And by that point, the boys reveal that they actually have powers. You know, what was it? Tommy is fast, just like Quicksilver
/ Pietro.
Yeah, and Billy actually has, like, you know, mental powers just like Wanda does, and he actually can feel his dad dying, trying to escape. So Wanda uses her power to extend the border, and not only, like, saves Vision, but swallows up the remaining sword agents that are camped outside, turning them into a circus, because they are fucking clowns.
They call, in the, you know, the 4th episode, she calls them clowns when she, you know, walks out of the barrier.
Right. But yeah, she, like, extends it by, I want to say, maybe a good half mile, if not a mile.
Also, I gotta wonder, going back to the 4th episode, you would have thought she'd recognize the director.
What do you mean?
So when, you know, she uses her power to make all the agents turn their guns on the director of S.W.O.R.D.
Right.
It's like, and then given that, you know, she had been to S.W.O.R.D. headquarters, communicated with him, you would have thought she'd recognize him.
I mean, did she give an indication that she didn't?
She doesn't say anything. It's like she just turns the guns on him. It's like wouldn't she have kind of thought something was up if she's, seeing him there outside? I would have thought she'd be a little bit suspicious.
I mean, she obviously knew his bad intents. I mean, I'm assuming the first time she met him, she was, still grieving, so she didn't, sense that he had ulterior motives. But then, at this point, when, they try to breach the barrier, and she, goes out all, with her power move, trying to be yo, leave me the fuck alone or I'm gonna kill y'all. That's when she realizes, oh, yeah, he's definitely here with bad intentions. I mean, I didn't really see an indication that, she goes out and she doesn't recognize him.
She just warns him, to stay out of things, but yeah. I would have thought that she might be a little more suspicious given that she had interacted with him at Sword. Obviously, again, I'm getting ahead of myself in that, in reality, she had interacted with him. She had, he had let her go and see Vision's body and, she left without incident. So it's why is Sword now all of a sudden on her?
Well, I think she knows what she's doing is wrong, considering she has a whole town captive. Obviously, people are going to notice. So it makes sense that there would be some people, trying to infiltrate or reach her or something.
I mean, she was kind of trying to stay hidden at first. It's just that eventually the barrier does become noticeable, but it's you wouldn't have thought it would have attracted attention, and I don't think she necessarily knew who the people in the barrier were. She just kind of showed up in the town and saw, random people around. I don't think it, even registered who they were or what,
Well, keep in mind, when she saw the beekeeper and the helicopter, they had the sword symbol on it, so I think she knew to a degree she was being watched.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there should have been more of a indication, that she knew something wasn't right, seeing the director there.
I just think she just was trying to focus on keeping her world self-contained. And by the end of this episode, going into the next episode, breaking the fourth wall, it's become clear that she's starting to lose her grip over concealing the town. Because now we're in, the Modern Family era. She's,
Office, yeah.
Yeah, talking to the camera, Office style and everything. Trying to share with us her inner thoughts and stuff. At this point, we know that she's self-aware of everything that's going on. But it's also clear that she's losing, her grip a bit. Because, she extends her power over the town. People are starting to, not act as controlled as before. Certain things start glitching, objects keep going, changing, time periods and stuff. It just, it's not looking good. And on top of that, Vision's still laying out in the field. She kind of just left him there. I just love that she, just didn't even bother. She's okay, saved him. Now he in timeout while I, deal with my own self-crisis or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, when you think about it, when we first, opened the episode, she's in bed. She's probably feeling wiped from using all this power, and she probably, it's she probably does not have the energy to go out and get Vision.
I just thought it funny, especially because, he woke up, he just went on a bender all night, and he's where the fuck am I? Why is there a circus? In addition to Sword, a majority of the Sword agents getting dragged in, Darcy got dragged in, too. I love they made her an escape artist. That was funny. He meets up with her. She fills him in on, everything that's happened, because he doesn't even remember, being an Avenger. He doesn't remember being Jarvis or anything that's happened from Ultron up to Infinity Wars. And
when he died.
Yeah, and that kind of gives an indication that, maybe this really isn't Vision, because the fact that he remembers nothing outside his life of Westview, that's a big red flag. Because I thought at the very least he knew about being an Avenger. That his memory probably stopped at Infinity War when he died and, maybe got reset or something. But the fact that there was, nothing. I do like how, he takes moments to, just talk to the camera sitting outside the truck while they're in traffic.
There was a lot of this, breaking the fourth wall stuff.
Right.
Especially like when Wanda's talking and the guy says, "Don't you think you deserved some of it?" It's like, wait, what? You're not supposed to talk.
I mean, she's right. How weird would the office be if, we actually saw the people holding the cameras talk?
I mean, it's not unheard of. Like, I know on occasion in these mockumentaries, you do occasionally they turn the camera on the crew.
Well, I know, especially in shows like, What We Do in the Shadows, we actually do see, the camera crew, who are in a legitimate dangerous situation, being chased by vampires themselves. In that case, it makes sense, because they're, dealing with clearly dangerous beings and stuff. But I mean in a regular setting, the way, Parks and Recs and Office and all them, where it's a normal professional setting, that normally doesn't happen.
True, but I mean, unless it's, for a comedy purpose or something like that.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But even so, I just found it so funny, especially because the town was, trying to prevent him from going back home, and it got to a point where he's like, wait a minute, I can fly. He just faces through. It's like, good job, Vision, you remembered you have powers.
We got Monica Rambo going back into the barrier.
Yeah, I gotta say, I feel like Monica has a death wish at this point. Because, people were pointing it out online, too. It's like, she doesn't have to do this, and she's killing herself trying to. And, I kind of have to agree with them, because it's like, because in the last episode, Darcy pointed out that Monica, she went through the first time, and then Wanda tossed her out the second time, and according to what she found out about, the hex, as she calls it, because of, its power to change things to suit the time period, it basically rewrites cells and stuff. So the whole thing had been rewriting Monica's cells. And that already happened twice. She was saying, what happens if that happens a third time? You can, possibly die or get hurt or something. Monica doesn't care. She contacts somebody to get this old-fashioned tank to try to get herself through. It doesn't work, so then she's just like, fuck it, and she freaking forces her way through, kind of splits herself throughout 5 different time periods or something, only to reform when she gets the other side, and now she's a superhero. I'm like,
go figure.
Okay. Weird way for someone to get superpowers, but I'll buy it. I guess she's Miss Marvel now, in terms of her powers. I mean, she can, she has super strength, she, I guess, is bulletproof, or at least,
bullets, she can phase, I guess.
Yeah, she can phase through things. Can she fly? She flies, right? Or at least she can leap really high?
I would say leap really high. I don't remember her flying.
Yeah, I guess she's falling with style. I mean, it's the beginning of her powers, so maybe she'll develop them more later on. Because I mean, it's in continuity with the comics. She was, her name was Photon in the comics?
I think so.
So we know for a fact she was, in the comics, she's a superhero. So I guess now they're just going to finally make that an official thing. Which I think is cool, because I would like to see her in, future installments. I'm just saying, I thought it was still an unnecessary risk that she took.
And ultimately, it really doesn't amount to much. It's she has a confrontation, but she gets kind of taken out pretty easily.
Her whole purpose of going in is to warn Wanda about what S.W.O.R.D. has been doing, what the director is doing and stuff. But even when she tells her, Wanda doesn't believe her. And, she kind of gets taken out of, the action for the most part and doesn't really come back till the finale.
And then even, Agnes kind of interferes in things, too. And
Don't get me wrong, I'm glad she's in this. I like her for the most part. I just felt like
they should have had a better plan for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's we need to get her to this point, so let's just force this, and then, we'll worry about building it up later in another, movie or series or something.
Yeah. I'm you just got powers, and you're trying to get into a fight where you don't even know exactly what your powers are yet, and, if you are a legit threat.
It's you're a baby superhero. You don't throw down with the big boys,
no.
Your first tussle. Come on.
No, I mean, I get there's something to be said for, trying to appeal to Wanda verbally, but trying to use your powers when you've only just acquired them and you don't know the extent of what you have, if you're even powerful enough to take on someone is extremely powerful. It's like, you really should strategize a little better.
Speaking of extremely powerful, can we get to that part now?
Yep, so Agnes takes Wanda into her house to, help her rest after everything that's happened, and then she notices things are a little off. Like, she sees a cicada, buzzing around, and then she realizes that the twins are not there, despite the fact that she asked Agnes to look after them. Agnes is like, oh, they're just playing in the basement.
Check out my creepy basement.
I want to check out my creepy basement. Yeah, which is exactly what Wanda does. It not only is... It's even creepier than we think.
It actually looks like the Sanctum from Doctor Strange a little bit. Like, I noticed, like, in terms of, having the thing in the middle and, like, the ruins on the walls and stuff. So I was thinking, wait, is this like a secret sanctum or something? Like, really close to New York, though? But yeah, like, it's revealed that it was Agatha all along. Yeah, Agnes.
Everybody knew it. They were all, like, saying from the beginning that they were assuming that Agnes was Agatha, and yeah, that finally happened.
I mean, that was really friggin' obvious, let's be honest with ourselves, because the fact that, she was the nosy neighbor, that she showed up in almost every single episode, was always inserting herself, never questioned the strangeness that was going on. The fact that the sword agents couldn't identify her out of everybody they were, like, looking at in the episodes. You knew stuff was going on. Even her twins knew what was going on before she did. Like, again, everybody called it. Like, I know the big theory everybody had been throwing around was that Mephisto was behind this, and that was what everybody kind of wanted, that, she made a deal with the devil, and this was, like, the deal, that she gets this world of her own, and that, because they still suspected it was Agatha, but that she was just a henchman to Mephisto or something, but no, like, Mephisto has nothing to do with this. It actually was all Agatha in terms of, the behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, granted, we know Wanda is the one that caused this, but Agatha's the one who's been, like, worming her way in with her own purpose, trying to get close. She's the reason behind Pietro being there, or Pietro, as fans are calling him. Fake Pietro.
And she gets her, her own theme song, which is like Munsters inspired, and it's just showing what she's been doing behind the scenes. And oh my God, it's probably the best thing.
I love that she sings it too.
Yeah, the best thing in the whole series.
And I killed Sparky too. I love the meme that's been gold.
It's like, up till now we've had like all Bernie Sanders memes, but I think Agatha just...
I got the memes I've seen that result of that have been gold. I think one of my favorites is, and I created the Cars for Kids theme too. I'm like, you bitch. But again...
She broke up Daft Punk.
I broke up Daft Punk too. Again, let's just blame all of our problems on Agatha. We know now it's been her. Again, it's something we saw coming, we knew was going to happen, but it was still a great reveal. And apparently Agatha All Along is #1 on iTunes right now. Go figure. Side note, if for our Ducktales series, if it wasn't for the fear of the YouTube goblins putting the banhammer on me, I totally would have done an AMV of it was Glom Gold all along. So after that reveal, that leads into our last 2 episodes. And these are like the big ones, because the next episode previously on is essentially a flashback episode, because Agatha wants to know, how Wanda got these powers, what led up to her creating Westview, basically answering a lot of our questions as to how the hell did she do all this. So we go through pretty much all of Wanda's past, when she was living in Sokovia with her family, up to when she was experimented on by Hydra, when she lived with Tony in the compound, up to when she tried to retrieve Vision's body.
And it definitely finally answers as to why we're in the, style that we're in. Her fondest memory is of watching, these old sitcoms and, old shows with her family. During that, their house gets bombed, but she and Pietro managed to live through it.
I've seen people point out inconsistencies about that memory, because she mentioned that they were, like, having dinner when it happened, and that, you know, there was people who tried to, like, that their parents initially survived and tried to look for survivors, but then died during the second bombing, as well as the fact that, you know, all the DVDs that she had of, like, the TV shows
They survived unscathed.
Not only that, but somebody pointed out, like, she had the Malcolm in the Middle Season 1 DVD thing, except that they said in terms of age that Wanda was born in 1989 and was, like, I think 10 years old when her parents died, which means it would have been 1999, which is when the year Malcolm in the Middle premiered.
Yeah, but the DVD wouldn't have come out until...
That's what I'm saying, that's the inconsistency.
No, the DVD would have come out, like, a few... Because I actually have that DVD.
I do, too.
Yeah, I have that DVD, and I know that it...
That didn't come out till, like, 2000s or something. So.
Yeah, like 2002 again, or so.
So that was a little inconsistency there. A little, I guess, goof or something.
Could be.
But still, it was nice to, like, actually see her parents, to see, you know, the life she lived, and it sucked that, you know, they had to live in that type of environment and stuff. Like, I was kind of surprised that, you know, they had, like, a friggin' gun war going outside their apartment, and yet their parents still let them, you know, watch TV and pretty much acted like nothing was wrong.
Actually, I do also want to point out that DVD didn't really become a big technology until the late 90s, and it wasn't really something a lot of people would have had in their home, especially if you're on, you know... I don't know about other regions of the world, but definitely, like, in America, you wouldn't have seen a DVD player as common until, like, maybe 2002.
I want to say that as well, because I certainly didn't have a DVD player until, I want to say, 2003, probably.
Yeah,
I was a bit late on the game, so...
Yeah, like, I had the Xbox. That was my very first DVD player. And that was,
yeah, I used the PlayStation before I used the actual DVD player to play things.
But, and especially, like, I'm sure, like, a lot of those sets really wouldn't have existed yet, too.
And especially in a country like Sokovia, which is waged by war and everything. I'm not saying that they're a complete third world country where, you know, they would have, like, 80s level, like, technology and stuff, but at the same time...
But they probably would not have, you know, that much released in the country yet.
I mean, unless your parents were, like, real hardcore, like, TV, like, fans that...
Like, unless they had things imported,
smuggle in those DVD sets. I mean, I'm just going on what people are saying in terms of the timeline. For all I know, this very well could have happened in the 2000s when this was more common. I mean, you know, mention in the comments, you know, if you know for a fact about this. I'm just pointing out what was pointed out to us online. But anyway, so yeah, we see those memories. We see when she's brought to Hydra that they apparently have been exposing people to the Mind Stone to see how, if anybody can interact with it, but so far everyone has died. But Wanda managed to actually, like, interact with it and survive, and not only that, it brought out her powers, pretty much confirming to us that she's a mutant. Not only that she's a mutant, but that she had dormant witch powers, which probably wouldn't have manifested themselves until this happened. And she has, like, that vision of herself, you know, in the future and everything, so... You know, it was a big monumental moment, and it confirmed what a lot of people have been saying, that, yeah, she is actually a mutant. She didn't just get her powers from the stone, like, this is legit, because now that Disney's merged with Fox, we can confirm that mutants exist.
We can say the word mutants.
Yeah. Yeah, then, of course, you know, flash forward to when she and Vision are first hanging out while she's watching TV and stuff. Like, I'm glad they showed that. Because the little bit that we got in Civil War, I really felt that wasn't enough. Because it's like, yeah, we saw, like, the burgeoning of their relationship. You know, he's obviously interested in her, but she's, like, trying to recover from what happened, you know, with the bomb.
That was a very awkward,
yeah.
You know.
But at least in this, you know, he comes in, he tries to, like, watch something with her that she likes, tries to, you know, converse with her and understand and everything, try to console her after the death of her brother, so... And, of course, there was that line he said, that the one that everybody went crazy over.
What is grief if not love persevering?
That is a really good line. Like, that truly is. And it kind of annoys me that people have been, you know, kind of like making fun of it. granted, some of the way they made fun of it has been a little bit funny, but it's one of those really wholesome things that you can tell people who lack empathy, really lack empathy and stuff, couldn't understand, and they see it as so wholesome that it's
too cheesy.
That's too cheesy
insincere.
And too insincere and stuff. So they try to make fun of it and stuff, and I'm like, dude, come on. To some people who take grief really hard, who lost their loved ones in a way that was very traumatic, that actually is a comforting thing. Mm-hmm. It shows that, your grief is valid. Yeah, you have this pain, but it proves that, you love someone enough to actually feel that pain, which is a good thing. Again, it's really one of those lines that I think is really probably going to, live through history, as one of the greatest film quotes of all time.
It actually kind of reminds me of an episode of South Park, the episode where, they go to Raisins, and Butters thinks that he has a girlfriend, but doesn't really. And then, you see the Goths, see him crying at the end. They want to invite him in, and then he's like, oh, I'm sad, but I'm glad I'm sad. It's a beautiful sadness. I'm kind of glad I felt this way in the first place. It's sort of like that. It makes him feel alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a good thing, and again, I wish people wouldn't make fun of it so much. You can make fun of any movie quote, let's be honest. But the fact that some people are doing that more out of spite, oh, this is such a cheesy line, everyone thinks it's so great, I'm gonna wreck it. It's leave the thing alone. It was a beautiful moment, and again, it was a nice way to show how they first, developed that spark between each other. How the first signs of them really,
clicking.
Yeah, falling in love. Because we know that Wanda fell in love with him enough to the point where, she broke out of prison and was on the run, and he actually, left Stark, and they were, both in hiding, together, and they really shouldn't have been. And, they were in love enough where they were able to risk each other's safeties and just to be together, to the point where, where she had to, really destroy the stone and kill him just to save the universe, that, to show why that was such a big thing. And now we finally see it. Because, that's what I'm thankful for this whole series, is just fleshing out the relationship and showing, yes, they're a legit couple. There's no arguing about that anymore. This isn't forced. It's not just because it was in the comics. They are a legit, actual couple.
And I think it also, justifies this series, it's great to have, all your action and, superhero theatrics. But sometimes it is also nice to, show our heroes with development. Do something out of the norm that, it shows them as human, even if, they're not...
Well, half of them are
not biologically human, yeah. But, to humanize them.
Right.
To make us see why we root for these characters.
Yeah, and it actually feels sad that Vision is now dead. And then, of course, we get to the big thing at the end, which is Wanda going to retrieve Vision's body. We find out that the director's take on how that all happened...
was doctored.
Well, I was going to say it was bullshit, but same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out that while she did go to SWORD to try and retrieve it, she didn't storm in and steal it, as he said. She went in, she asked to see the body, they weren't going to allow her, but then the director did allow her in. She goes in, she sees his body, which is now in pieces, and he explains that because Vision is such an advanced machine and such a dangerous, weapon that could potentially fall into any, the wrong hands, that they're trying to dismantle him and make sure that nobody can ever use him again. And I understand that reasoning. I agree with that reasoning, because this is Stark technology, and that stuff notoriously has been used by the wrong hands. And she does seem to accept this, except that, they won't allow her to bury him, they won't allow her to even take a little piece of him to bury. That's the only time she kind of loses control, is where she shatters the glass and goes in to see him. But once she realizes that, yeah, he actually is truly and fully gone, she accepts it and she leaves. She didn't steal him, she didn't threaten people, she just left. So, yeah. Pretty much he riled everyone up for no reason. I mean, maybe not no reason because of what happened later, but still. she's not the bad guy that he's painting her out to be. Not fully, anyway. She apparently also got a letter before, I guess before Vision died or something. He apparently bought them a house in Westview, or at least land in which to build a house. Once she goes there and she sees what, they could have had and everything, that's when she unleashes her full chaotic magic and not only enslaves the entire town, but actually creates a new version of him. So now we know that Vision, he's not a dead corpse floating around being puppeted. No, he's an actual creation, I guess, from her own memory of him. I gotta say, that scene was, so heartbreaking. They just, seeing, especially when he drew the heart, saying, where we can grow old together, I'm like, ugh. It was kind of weird, though, that, she, even in her grief, she immediately thought back to, a show in the 50s, and that's exactly where they start off with. I gotta say, when you think about it, the entire show really only takes place over the course of, a week? Not even?
Yeah, about.
Yeah, it's because, technically speaking, they've only gone to sleep, 5 times? So it's the course of, a weekly show or something.
And we even see, the, between, at the end of the second episode, we see the transition happen. I think we only see them go to bed once or twice in the whole time.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can...
So it could even be less time.
Yeah. I mean, I assume when the credits roll, that's when that signifies the end of the day or whatever. But they kind of established that time worked weird in the bubble because, it would be daytime in there, it would be nighttime outside, or vice versa. Who the hell knows?
Yeah,
this could have taken place over 3 days for all we know.
Space is warp and time is
bendable.
bendable.
But anywho, so yeah, we finally get our answer into how Westview came into fruition, how everyone got enslaved and what Vision is and stuff. And Agatha finally got her answer on, what Wanda is and how she did this. And she reveals that, she is the legendary Scarlet Witch. So finally we get a name drop for the superhero. I was not expecting them to do that. I was actually not expecting Scarlet Witch to actually be a thing in this. Because I know Wanda is, by comic definition, the Scarlet Witch. But I figured, given the whole modernization of this, that, we just know her as that, but she's not actually the Scarlet Witch. That's maybe a code name, I guess Hydra gave her. But no, she's actually the legit, actual, fully costumed, fully powered Scarlet Witch. So I think it's really cool we finally get an actual origin for her in that sense. So I guess when you think about it, WandaVision was the origin of Scarlet Witch. And I gotta say, I'm pretty sure my sister's really happy about that, because Scarlet Witch is one of her favorite characters. And I really digged her costume, too. I thought it was a nice upgrade.
Yeah. I like how they're even showing it kind of manifesting with the tiara.
Yeah.
And how they're, it's not even a physical thing. It's just, it's her power kind of manifesting into something physical.
Yeah, I did think that cool, too.
Yeah.
So, of course, now that Agatha knows this, she wants the power for herself, because at the beginning of the episode, before we go on Wanda's, flashbacks, we find out that, like in the comics, Agatha did live during the period of the Salem witch trials, except it wasn't other people that were trying to kill her for being a witch, it was her own coven. In fact, her own mother tried to kill her because she was into the dark arts. Whatever the heck that means by witch standards. That confused me. I'm like, wait, you're witches, and you're the stereotypical witches in this sense. So what do you mean by dark arts? Aren't you already practicing the dark arts? Is this the darker arts? Whatever.
Darkness! No parents!
Extra darkness. So yeah, through them trying to execute her, we find out that Agatha has the power to absorb magic, or absorb energy. And that is how she ends up killing pretty much everyone in her coven. And we can assume that she's been doing this in the century since, probably hunting down other magic users and just absorbing their energy, either to keep herself alive or make herself more powerful, whatever.
Or seeking that Scarlet Witch power.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And that's what drew her to Westview, and how she was able to infiltrate and still keep her wits about her in terms of, trying to, get close to Wanda. now that we know this is her plan, now that Wanda knows this is her plan, she, of course, is going to fight her on it. Because the problem is that if she shows that if she lets down the hex, lets it dissolve, Vision and her sons will disappear. They physically cannot exist outside of it. So that leads her to the dilemma of, does she keep it up for the sake of her family, or does she let it down in order for the others to leave? Because she finally gets confronted by all the town people after Agatha cuts, their mental strings, and it's revealed that, she's been keeping them under control for their own safety, but at the same time she's causing them immense pain. And it's not just physical pain, it's the pain of her own...
They can feel her
of her own
pain.
emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that, they experience her nightmares every night, they experience her grief, they are conscious of the fact that they cannot physically be near their loved ones because of what she's doing. And that is what brings her to the big dilemma, because it's like, does she make these people suffer only for the few people that she loves? I thought that was a good dilemma to give to her, and I'm glad that she actually saw it as a dilemma too, because I was worried that she would put her family above everything regardless, but that thankfully wasn't the case. So now it's a big showdown between her and Agatha. Unfortunately, she kind of has the disadvantage because whatever attack she throws at Agatha, she absorbs, and not only that, but she absorbs her life force, and you see her hands start to shrivel and stuff, sort of like what happened to her coven. So it's like, oh, well, this sucks. And meanwhile,
we apparently, at the end of the last episode, we got a peek at a new color vision.
Yeah, white vision became a thing now. And again, I know he was in the comics, and...
West Coast Avengers, as everybody's been saying.
Yeah, so he's basically Vision, just without any of the memories of being an Avenger. It's kind of like the current one, except, in addition to his memories, he has no personality either. And it's actually kind of creepy the way he talks, because he sounds more like, was it James Schneider, like Ultron? Than
James Spader.
James Spader, yeah. Yeah, James Spader. So it's like he has the more deeper, menacing voice. So I almost thought for a point we were going to get him back, that he was going to voice him to show that, he's more Ultron than Jarvis in this version. But that actually wasn't the case.
And then they have a huge philosophical debate. I know about this actually because I did take a philosophy. I forget what the ship.
The Theseus ship.
Yeah, the ship of Theseus, and how if it's broken and you rebuild the thing, is it still the same? Is it still actually the ship of Theseus? Is it still actually Vision?
Right.
And they determine, in their own way, that neither of them is actually Vision. Despite the fact that, Wanda's manifestation of Vision has the memories, he's still physically not Vision. And then, the white Vision is physically the Vision, but he lacks the memories. Or does he?
Somehow, fake Vision, the Hex Vision, is able to access the white Vision's inner core memories and unleash everything. Again, everything from Age of Ultron up to Infinity War. So now White Vision has all of his original memories, and once he realizes that, he kind of just leaves. Mm-hmm. He kind of just takes off. So it's like, okay, that was the great epic fight we were expecting. I'm sorry, I just love we have these two immensely superpowered beings, and you think it's going to be this epic showdown or whatever, but no, they throw philosophy at each other until one relents and just leaves.
I mean, when you think about it, it's basically Vision versus Ultron again, except, instead of actually killing him, he, reveals his real self.
Yeah, true. I just found it funny, because you have, Agatha and Wanda out there just hurling spells at each other and destroying shit around them, and then the two Visions are inside are just but what if this happened? So yeah, White Vision is done, and I gotta say, because the director's whole point was that he was trying to breach the Hex to try to get to Vision. That's what they were indicating. But he already had Vision. He already remade Vision. So what was it he was after exactly?
I think he deemed Wanda a threat to it, and he wanted to, have her eliminated, or at least have control over her. Honestly, I'm theorizing. I honestly think whatever his plan was, it was very weak.
It was evil government man from the government. Let's just leave it at that.
Because basically his whole plan hinged around, getting rid of Wanda. It's like everything is like, let's throw, a missile in there and try to kill her. Let's, it's basically let's infiltrate and, bomb the place and kill her.
I don't understand his plan. Like, I could have understood it if the Vision in the Hex actually was Vision and he was just trying to get his hands on the technology. But the fact that he already had it and he didn't really need Wanda for anything, I'm just like, why? You're just being an asshole at this point. You're drawing unnecessary focus on yourself. Like, because he already sent in White Vision to deal with them, but then he goes in himself with his team. I guess maybe to give backup or something, but it's like, you realize you're taking on Wanda Maximoff, who is arguably the most powerful Avenger. You really think you and your little sword agents are going to be a match against her chaotic magic? Like,
it's always the deal with the military in these kind of movies. It's like they're
a giant radioactive monster that can shoot fire from like miles away. Let's shoot at it.
It's always showing, like in Transformers and everything. It's like the government, the military is just woefully unqualified to deal with these extra, super extraterrestrial beings, but they still throw their weight around. Hopefully, maybe
they're important.
Hopefully, maybe they can get the spoils or whatever. But they're gonna die in the process. Let's not beat around the bush. They're just inept.
Yeah.
They're inept. And this guy, he's seeking power. That's his main motivation. But again, his motives, aside from that, are not very clear. But
he did that. He could have easily done that under the radar with nobody knowing, aside from a few key agents and SWORD. It could have been a whole Hydra situation, whatever. But no, he had to turn his focus on Wanda. He had to eliminate Wanda. He had to, interrupt her whole, captured world thing or whatever. And ultimately, it was for no reason. It's like, you did not have to engage with her whatsoever. I don't know if there's something we missed. Like, maybe we should rewatch this again, just get an overall idea of what his ultimate plan was. But it just felt unnecessary. It's like, we need another villain to throw into this, and let's just make it evil government man. So
his whole thing is acquiring weapons.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. So it's either it's got to be that he wants control over Wanda, or he wants to destroy her.
Ugh.
That's ultimately what it boils down to. But again, it's not clear.
It's so bad when it's like you love the evil witch character more than you like the actual bad guy. It's like they're both bad guys, but you like the one with magic who killed a dog and is trying to kill children more than you like the guy who is, the guy who took over a robot.
Much like Monica, you really should have gone back and fleshed this one out a bit more.
Yeah. So Wanda and Agatha fight. Somehow, Wanda manages to actually outsmart her. So she actually uses those spells against her, so Agatha can't use her magic. She goes into her mind to take over her, and dear God, the way she takes her out, it is both cruel, but it is also, genius. Because ultimately, when she renders her powerless, she decides to trap her in Westview as the nosy neighbor character she invented for herself. With, no memory of who she was and no control over herself in order to escape. Like I said, it's cruel because it's like you're trapping her within her own mind like you did with the rest of the townspeople. But at the same time, she's a threat. And you're doing this in a way that necessarily kill her, because she could get brought back.
Yep.
So,
she says, you know, you have no idea what you've unleashed and everything. It's
like, you're gonna need my help.
Yeah, it's like, I'll call.
And I gotta say, I'm really glad they did that, because one of the big problems in terms of MCU villains is that they're always one-off, like, characters, and they're usually one note. And because, unlike DC, Marvel actually kills their villains, which is a good thing in terms of, like, as a result of what they've done in the movie, but bad in terms of franchise, because it means you can't bring them back unless it's through really convoluted means. Because, I mean, they knew that they had struck gold with Loki, hence why he keeps fucking coming back, even when it doesn't fully make sense. But I'm glad in this case with Agnes, it's like, they could tell she was going to be a good villain and a useful one in future installments, hence why she's now dormant as she is. And I think that's genius. Because it's like, we get this awesome villain, but they're not dead. Thank God.
In the comics, like, apparently, an Agatha mentor to the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, that's the other thing I've seen people complain about is, like, they made Agatha a full villain, whereas in the comics she wasn't necessarily a villain. She was kind of like a chaotic neutral party who, like, worked with whoever, I guess, suited her means or whatever. Like, she did train with Wanda, so she, I guess, has some goodness in her. It's like, she was persecuted in, like, Salem witch trials, so she's more, everything she does is more out of self-preservation and survival. So, you can understand that. And, you know, they kind of made her a full villain on this, but I'm like, you know, given how she's portrayed and everything, I kind of agree with what they've done. Because it's like, you know, go hard or go home.
Perhaps, you know, they could reform her.
Yeah, true. She could be like Missy.
She'd get a redemption arc.
Not necessarily redemption. It's like she's one of those villains that's, like, fun, but, like, she isn't necessarily malicious.
They could downgrade her from, like, villain to, you know, threat, but not, you know, not actively,
like I said, she'd be like the Master or Missy, you know, the way they ultimately had her by the end. The threat is neutralized, but of course, Wanda realizes that things have to come to an end. You know, she has to free everybody. So she tucks her kids into bed for one last time. She says goodbye to Vision, and then everything ends. And I guess she no longer needs her car anymore because she left it behind, and she kind of just flies off out of Westview to God knows where.
Well, I mean, we do see the car later on. Or a car.
I guess. The director guy's arrested, everybody's free, and Monica gets called in by one of the agents for a secret message. And it turns out the messenger was a Skrull. And she said that a friend of her mother's wanted to speak to her at their base, which happened to be... So we leave off on that, and then we have, like, end credit scenes and stuff. We find out that Wanda, you know, is basically living like the way the Hulk was, in his, like, secret cabin in the middle of nowhere. But she's also apparently practicing her magic now, because she's doing what Doctor Strange was doing with the astral projection, as she, like, was going about her daily thing while, you know, studying her magic. I have to say, though, like, it was pretty cool that she was able to actually do stuff while her astral self was, like, studying. Because, like, with him, his body would sleep while his astral self studied. The fact that she's able to move around while studying, like, shows that she really is more powerful than him.
I'm going to guess it's sort of like an autopilot sort of thing.
I guess
that, like, you know, she's sort of doing things unconsciously while, you know, using big brain to astral project.
And then during her studies and her meditation or whatever, she hears the voice of her sons calling out to her. And that pretty much indicates that maybe her kids are still alive in some capacity. So, perhaps
in another dimension. In the multiverse.
So leading off into Doctor Strange too. It's a good way to do it too. I'm guessing this will be her motivation for seeking him out. Yep. And it's like, woo, good setup. I love it. Oh, one last thing before we get into, like, the overview of this. The reveal of Ralph. So yeah, fake Pietro, turns out he was the Ralph that Agatha was talking about all this time, her husband. And yeah, he's just some guy, I guess, from what I heard, he's like a struggling actor, if his headshot is anything to go by. And that is why she used him to, like, act as Pietro. And I gotta say, that is both simultaneously funny and frustrating. It's funny because of how it ties into everything, but it's frustrating because it kind of throws away all the theories that, you know, oh, this must have been like alternate dimension Pietro or something or whatever. It's like, no, he's not in Pietro at all. He's just some guy who just happens to have the same actor as the other Pietro.
Yeah. But at least his thing, and, you know, he is name-dropping things from the Fox universe in terms of mutants and Maximov, and so at least in that sense, it's not a total waste.
True.
Yeah.
I gotta wonder, like, was Agatha replicating his super speed?
I'm guessing. I know she had, like, the necklace around him, so maybe there was, like...
Well, I know she had that to control him, I guess, but...
I mean,
that
it might
gave
have
him
been,
his powers, too?
It could have been, like, a talisman sort of deal, where,
I guess
you know...
give him the super strength or whatever, or his super speed. I guess so. I just thought, when I thought back at it, I'm like, wait, so she was able to recreate his, like, super speed and all that? Like, I don't know, it was a bit weird to me, but I guess, you know, all the, you know, magic stuff probably explains it. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll give our final thoughts on everything, as well as any predictions we have from here on out. First of all, I just wanted to say this was a fantastic show. Like, I heard there was, like, Emmy talk for this, and I really hope the Emmys acknowledge this and give it what it rightfully deserves, because this shows that, you know, superheroes can make for compelling, regular, like, TV movie storylines, because they always get snubbed, you know, as being, like, kid stuff that... You know, oh, it's popular with the kids, and, you know, thus it has no merit and stuff. But then, like, you see stuff, like, her going through her trauma and everything, and, you know, the dialogue we experience in Vision, it's like, dude, these legit writers are working on this. They're putting their all. Like, you see all the effects and, like, all the acting and stuff. Like, this is as good as any other regular show on television, if not better. Give it its due. So... yeah, I really hope that happens, because it deserves it so much.
I especially like the fact that, you know, it's not like a standard TV series, but it's not a movie, so it's a mini-series. Mm-hmm. And I think that works so well in giving it what time it needs to breathe.
Yeah.
You know, what time for pacing and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, you might think that it starts off slow, but it's really taking the time it needs, and it's being
building. A regular television show that airs once a week.
Yeah.
Because in this age where, you know, they episode bomb everything, people watch everything all at once, you know, we've gotten used to seeing everything all at once as a convenience and stuff, and thus seeing it as an overall product. Whereas this, it actually draws everything out. It, you know, allows you a chance to, like, theorize about things, to actually get invested in it. And I think that, like, you know, a lot of people have forgotten that. People our age who used to grow up with that. It's like, this is something that is so sorely needed. And yes, I know that Disney Plus did this just so people would actually buy their product, you know, actually pay for Disney Plus. But I honestly think this works better being weekly series.
Yep. Makes it also kind of feel like, you know, that serialized comic that, you know, that's more the style than, like, shoving everything into a one-shot movie. Mm-hmm. You know. Yeah, so
you don't have to cut anything. Yeah. You don't have to, like, reduce somebody's time. Like, you can actually, like, give focus where it's due. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying it's fully perfect, you know. Like, outside of, like, the Wanda and the Vision stuff, you know, some of the sword stuff I thought was a bit, you know, obviously the director was an issue. You know, the focus on Monica was a bit lacking. You know, there are definitely things that they didn't give their full attention to that I felt could have been better. But for what it is, I thought they did a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. And real quick, I gotta say with, like, the commercials, like, I loved how they kind of shift gears halfway through the series. Because at first, the first couple ones are in response to her personal traumas. You know, in terms of referencing, like, when she was, you know, with her parents dying, with her being in Hydra, and what happened in that city, Lagos.
Yep.
But then it shifts, and it kind of goes to, you know, predicting stuff we find out in the finale. Because, like, I had been wondering what that whole shark commercial was with the yogurt and stuff. Because I'm like, wait, what is this in reference to? Now, and you realize that was in reference to Agatha sucking Wanda's powers from her. So, that was where that fit in. And then, of course, we get to, was it Nexus, the depression drug or whatever? That was in regards to Wanda basically keeping the townspeople compliant throughout this whole thing, for the sake of, trying to keep them safe, even though it caused them pain. Like I said, things like that I think was, like, really clever. And I think it added a little more to the overall thing. So now that leads to what are we going to expect from this? Because obviously this is going to lead off into Doctor Strange 2, because we know Wanda's going to appear in Doctor Strange 2. Then we're also thinking, what else is this also going to lead off into? Because obviously we got Monica meeting up with Fury, and if they're going into space, I'm guessing that it's going to lead into Captain Marvel too. Mm-hmm. Because, she's going to meet the Skrulls, she's going to meet Fury, we're going to find out what the hell, Captain Marvel's been up to this whole time out in space, past Endgame, so, it's probably see Monica develop her powers a little more, come into her own, so that would be fun to watch. There's also the question of what happened to White Vision, like, where the hell did he go? Because, like, now that he got his memories back, it's like, you think the first thing he'd do would go to Wanda, but no, he just takes off. So I'm wondering where the heck he's going to go to. If he's just going to, like, hang off somewhere until, like, some big thing happens.
I have a theory.
Yeah?
It could be involving Black Panther 2.
Really?
I mean, in Infinity War, wasn't Shuri, like, working on Vision before the attack happened?
Yeah, she was.
So maybe he's going there to, I think I heard somebody saying that, like, maybe Shuri kept his memories on backup or something like that. So maybe he might be exploring something like that.
But I mean, he has his memories back, and she was more trying to, I guess, dislodge him from the stone so they could remove it without killing him. And she didn't even finish. And plus her machines got broken during the attacks.
I know, it's a very, it's on a limb, but it's possible.
I mean, part of me wonders if he would try to seek out Tony, but Tony's dead now, so maybe he seeks out Pepper instead, or somebody who has to do with Stark, Industries and whoever's running it now. Like I said, there's so many possible, like, answers as to what the hell they're going to do with White Vision now, because I guess technically now Vision's been resurrected or something, but not quite. So we don't even know if he's really a good guy or a bad guy, or if he's just his own entity. A lot of things to theorize there. There's, of course, the question of what's going to happen with the twins. Is Agnes going to find them in Doctor Strange 2? Do they exist in an alternate dimension? Are they actually still alive somewhere as they were before? I mean, we'll probably find that out in that movie. When are they going to bring back Agatha? Because seriously, she's too good of a villain for them to sideline for too long. Like, they might even bring her back as quickly as maybe the end of Doctor Strange 2.
Could be.
And then, of course, you had that one theory, right?
I mean, obviously we've got Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness coming up, so there's multiverse theory that can be explored, and that theoretically we're saying there could be Infinity Stones in other universes.
Which is a very terrifying thought.
It is, but, exploring that concept of maybe trying to get Vision back to what he was before.
Actually, I had a real terrifying thought. I'm going to make the argument they're not going to add the stones, because here's the problem if they do. If they bring back the Infinity Stones...
There's alternate Thanos?
Not just alternate Thanos, but they can bring back any of the superheroes that died. So they can bring back Tony again. And it's like, on the one hand, yes, I miss Robert Downey Jr., I miss Iron Man and stuff, but it's like, he had the perfect ending when he died in Endgame, so, I feel like that would be a big undo, and a big mistake if they did that.
I feel like it wouldn't be Robert Downey Jr. Tony, though. It might be a different version of him.
Well, if they go to an alternate dimension, they would meet someone, but I'm saying if somebody wanted to resurrect Tony, or any other, like, character that has died in the past, you know, I'm just saying that could potentially cause problems. But I don't know, maybe it could be a good thing. I don't know. I just feel like, you know, this is a way for, like, whiny nerds to, like, say, like, oh, now you can do this and change this thing that we really hated, and it's gonna, like, ruin things. But that's just what I think. So, again, who knows what the heck's gonna happen. So all I know is that we have Black Widow to look forward to this year,
and Falcon and Winter Soldier coming up next month.
Yeah, we're gonna try to see if we can maybe do a live reaction to that. If not, we'll just do a overall review to it like we did with this. And same thing with, like, anything else that comes out on Disney Plus in the future. Because again, we don't expect everything to be a hit, but we'll, you know, still give it a chance. And, you know, share our thoughts, you know. And again, if you guys have any recommendations that you like, that you want us to, you know, review either in this format or do a live reaction to, you know, please comment below. We'll take it into consideration. We might not live react to, like, the first episode right away because, you know, we like to give things a chance, and if it sucks, we don't want to get stuck with it. But we'll see how it goes, because I have faith in the MCU, because they, for the most part, they try to be good. And they've been rather consistent these last few years, so here's hoping. Sorry if this has been a very long video. It's just, again, we wanted to do this weekly. It just didn't work out that way. But, you know, we had fun. This was a great series, and I assume if you're watching this, you've already watched it. You know that truth. And anybody who hasn't, please go watch the series. It's amazing. And I guess we'll see you next time, either for MCU stuff or for, you know, just our regular TV live reactions. Oh, and just to be clear, just, you know, this isn't part of the regular Marvel initiative we have going with Zen. We kind of just borrowed the opening a bit, but if you want to see our regular Marvel Initiative episodes, you know, go to Zenith Warrior Princess channel. We only have done two so far, but we're slowly going to get there with the other stuff. And eventually we will get to a WandaVision, where Zen's going to share her thoughts on this as well, because I believe she enjoyed this as much as we did. So, but for now, you just get our opinion, so I hope that's enough. So, until next time, everyone, I'm Kat MacBerrie.
I'm Doug MacBerrie.
And this has been WandaVision.
Please stand by.
Who's been messing up everything?